The night splits open over a forgotten graveyard. No thunder, no light, just a tremor beneath the earth. Then, a hand. Dean Winchester claws his way up through the dirt, coughing, gasping, dragging himself from the coffin that should have been his end. He stands in daylight that feels wrong, too bright for a man who burned in hell. His body bears no wound, no scar, only disbelief. He staggers into the nearest town, half blind, half wild. The world moves as though nothing happened, but every reflection, every flicker of light, feels like a secret whispering his name. In a convenience store, he steals water, jerky, and a battered map. When he looks into the mirror behind the counter, he doesn't see a corpse. He sees a man reborn. The electronics around him shriek, radios scream, screens burst with static and then silence. Something unseen passes overhead, like wings beating against the sky. Dean's hunter instincts take over. He finds a car, hot wires it, and drives to the one place that might still anchor him to reality, Bobby Singer's salvage yard. When Bobby opens the door, he nearly shoots. The shotgun shakes in his hands. Dean. Yeah, Dean answers, forcing a crooked grin. Miss me? Bobby doesn't smile. He tests him holy water, silver knife, Latin verses. Every test passes. Dean is alive, human. Then how the hell did you crawl out? Bobby mutters. Been wondering that myself, Dean says. Maybe they lost my reservation downstairs. They talk through the night, trying to fill a year's silence. Bobby tells him Sam vanished after Dean's death, driven, reckless, hunting anything with black eyes. Dean's heart twists. Whatever brought him back, he needs to find his brother before the world twists him beyond saving. They trace motel receipts, bar calls, fragments of rumor until they reach a small Iowa town. Dean spots the car before he sees the man, the black '67 Impala gleaming under dust. His heart skips. That car is more family than blood. Then, in the doorway of a cheap motel, Sam appears. For a moment both brothers freeze. Dean breaks the silence first. You look like crap, Sammy. Sam doesn't move. You're dead. Not today, Dean says. Mind if I come in before I fall over? The hug that follows is rough, wordless. A punch of grief and disbelief rolled together. Sam pulls back, eyes wet but wary. I burned you myself, he whispers. Yeah, well, guess you didn't use enough lighter fluid. They sit in silence until the words find them again. Sam explains how he hunted alone, how he tried everything, demon deals, rituals, but nothing worked. Dean listens, guilt flickering behind every smirk. Then he notices something new in Sam's eyes, something colder. What have you been hunting? Demons, Sam says. Just demons. Sam doesn't answer. That night, Dean wakes to the sound of whispers. He steps outside, the air trembles, glass windows ripple, street lights explode. Something huge and unseen circles above him. Bobby's words echo in his head, something powerful brought you back. The next morning they gather at Bobby's place, the three of them locked in grim focus. Dean tells them about the pulse, the wings, the silence that follows. Bobby suggests calling in an old ally, a psychic named Pamela Barnes. Maybe she can peek behind the veil and see who or what yanked Dean from the pit. Sam objects. Dean just got back. You really want to open that kind of door? Dean shrugs. I'm tired of guessing. Let's find out who my miracle worker is. Pamela's house smells of sage and whiskey. She greets them with a grin that hides nervous energy. Heard you came back from a place nobody walks out of, she says. Let's see who signed the return slip. Candles, Latin, circles of salt. The ritual begins. The air thickens. Pamela's voice deepens as she calls to the light that claimed Dean. The windows shake. Something answers. Pamela gasps. Her eyes roll wide. It's too bright, she cries. I see wings, massive wings. Then she screams and collapses. When Bobby reaches her, her eyes are burned blind. Dean stares in horror. What did you see? Her voice trembles. An angel. You were saved by an angel. The room falls into stunned silence. Dean laughs, hollow and disbelieving. An angel? Me? No chance. I've done too many bad things for heaven to punch my ticket. But Bobby's expression stays grave. Maybe it's not about what you did, son. Maybe it's about what's coming. Dean turns away, shaken. For the first time since clawing his way from the grave, he feels something colder than hell itself, destiny. In the black Impala as it rolled down the cracked road, the hum of the engine steady, almost calming. The landscape around them was empty, long stretches of dry fields, power lines humming in the distance, and the faint shimmer of heat rising from the asphalt. Dean squinted against the sunlight, his knuckles loose on the steering wheel. You know, after what Pamela said, I could really use a burger. Maybe something fried? Something that doesn't scream demon ritual. Sam turned his head, watching the horizon pass. His tone was quiet, thoughtful. You think food's gonna help? Dean shrugged. Hey, comfort food heals trauma. It's in the Bible. Somewhere in the back. They drove a while longer before spotting a sign just off the highway, Harper's Diner, the paint faded, the arrow barely hanging. But the smell of oil and something close to coffee drifted even from the road. Dean slowed down, lips twitching into that half grin that always showed before trouble. Perfect. Grease, pie, and a side of existential dread. Sam exhaled through a tired smile. Yeah. Just what we need. Inside, the diner was the kind of place that hadn't seen a remodel since the 70s. Brown leather booths patched with duct tape, a jukebox muttering out an old country tune, ceiling fans that squeaked on every rotation. A few people sat scattered around, truckers, locals, maybe tourists, all with the same glazed look of quiet indifference. Dean pushed through the door first, the bell above it giving a single tired chime. He looked around, scanning every face the way he always did, eyes sharp, instinct running before thought. Sam followed, shoulders tense but trying to appear casual. They took a booth near the window, the vinyl seat creaking under Dean's weight. He reached for a menu that looked like it had survived a dozen coffee spills. So, Dean said, flipping it open, we're thinking pancakes, bacon, or saving the world. What's your poison today? Sam didn't look up. How about less sarcasm, more research? Dean chuckled. You ever think maybe you'd smile more if you had bacon in your life? Pretty sure arteries say otherwise. Dean opened his mouth for a comeback and stopped. The waitress had arrived. She was beautiful, not the kind of beauty that shouted for attention, but the kind that made the room fall quiet without trying. Dark hair tied back in a loose knot, a thin gold chain around her neck that caught the light every time she moved. Her smile was perfect, too perfect. "Afternoon, boys," she said warmly. "What can I get you?" Dean looked up, grin sliding automatically into place. "I'll take the cheeseburger, extra everything. And maybe your number, if it's on the menu." She laughed, not offended, just amused. "You wish. Hey, a man can dream." Sam cleared his throat. "Coffee. And the salad, please." Dean gave him a side glance that practically said traitor. The waitress jotted down the order with neat handwriting, the kind that made small circles over her eyes. "Coming right up." She turned away, and Dean's eyes followed her for a moment too long. Sam sighed. "Can you ever not flirt?" Dean smirked. "Can you ever not judge?" For a few minutes, the diner returned to its normal rhythm, forks scraping plates, low chatter, the hum of the jukebox changing to an older tune. The brothers talked quietly, bits of unfinished thoughts between them. Sam leaned forward. "You think Pamela was right? That something pulled you out?" Dean's jaw flexed. "Yeah, well, whatever it wasn't doing it for kicks." He didn't finish the thought. A few minutes later, the waitress returned, only this time, she didn't stop to drop the plates and leave. She slid into the booth beside Dean, tray still balanced in her hand, her perfume faintly sweet but heavy with something else. Dean blinked, half amused. "Well, this is service." She smiled wider. "Hi, Dean." The tone was wrong. Soft, but cutting. Like two voices speaking at once. Dean's amusement faded instantly. Sam straightened in his seat, his eyes darting around the diner. And then she looked up. Her eyes turned black. Ink poured into her irises, turning them into mirrors of the void. The overhead lights flickered once, then steadied. Dean's voice was flat. "Yeah. Should have known." All around them, the other customers turned their heads. Every one of them eyes dark, faces blank. The sound of the door clicking shut came from somewhere behind them. The waitress leaned closer, her whisper brushing against Dean's ear. "Who pulled you out, Dean?" He didn't answer immediately. His jaw tightened, pulse steady but slow. "I don't know," he said finally, his voice low. "But whatever it was, it's a hell of a lot more powerful than you." The room stayed frozen. A single ceiling fan creaked overhead. The demon tilted her head, studying him, maybe testing the truth behind his words. Something in her expression flickered a hint of uncertainty. Dean pushed his plate aside and stood. Sam followed, his hand close to the inside of his jacket, ready if things turned ugly. "Now," Dean said, nodding toward the door, "if you don't mind, I'm in the middle of a cheat day." The waitress smirked, though the edge in her smile faltered. Dean and Sam moved toward the exit. None of the demons stopped them, but their eyes followed every step, silent and heavy. When the brothers reached the door, Dean glanced back. "Next time, maybe try better bait." He pushed the door open. Outside, the air felt cooler, real. The sunlight hit hard, sharp after the dim interior. They didn't speak until they were halfway to the car. Dean exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "So, lunch ruined?" Sam shook his head. "They knew you." They knew something. That's not normal. Yeah, Dean said quietly. Welcome back to Weird. They got into the Impala, doors shutting in sync. The engine roared to life, that familiar sound grounding them for a moment. The diner grew smaller in the rearview mirror until it disappeared completely. The silence in the car lingered, thick with questions neither wanted to ask. Finally, Sam said it anyway. Dean, whatever pulled you out if demons are scared of it? Dean didn't look at him. Then maybe we should be too. The road stretched ahead, endless, golden in the fading light, and somewhere far behind, inside Harper's diner, the lights flickered once more before going dark. The Impala hummed softly against the quiet road as Dean and Bobby drove through the dusky light, the world still heavy with everything that had just happened. Pamela's screams echoed faintly in Dean's mind, that terrible, haunting sound when her eyes burned white from the angelic sigil. Dean didn't like to admit it, but the image stuck to his thoughts like smoke that wouldn't clear. The brothers didn't say much at first. Sam sat in the back seat, lost in silence. Dean glanced at him occasionally in the rearview mirror, that same half-brotherly, half-interrogative look. It wasn't just that Sam had changed while he was gone, it was the feeling Dean couldn't name, something darker, quieter. The town rolled by in flickers of neon and shadow until they stopped at a small roadside motel. The sign buzzed lazily, half the letters burned out. Bluebird Inn. A place that smelled of stale coffee, cigarettes, and secrets. They checked in quickly, and once inside, the air between them thickened with unspoken things. Dean threw his jacket on the chair and started pacing, while Sam sat at the edge of his bed, rubbing the back of his neck. Bobby poured a drink, his face grim. What happened back there, he muttered, wasn't supposed to happen. Pamela was one of the best. Whatever fried her like that, it wasn't demon work. That was something else entirely. Dean didn't answer right away. He stared at the wall, that same silent frustration boiling underneath. You think I don't know that, he said finally. I saw it. She screamed like her soul was burning. Sam looked up, cautious. Dean. No, Dean cut him off. Don't Dean me, Sam. We're talking about something that burned through her mind just because she looked at it. That's not a demon, that's not a spirit, that's something else. The room fell into silence again. Bobby sighed and leaned back, his voice gravelly. Whatever it was, it left you behind, Dean. That's not random. Dean scoffed, grabbing a beer from the table. Yeah, well, maybe it's a mistake. But Sam didn't seem convinced. His eyes, darker now, thoughtful, shifted toward Dean. What if it wasn't, he said softly. What if you were brought back for a reason? Dean shot him a look, half irritation, half disbelief. What reason, huh? I just woke up in a coffin, dug my way out, and now I'm supposed to believe some cosmic being wanted me alive for a reason. Sam didn't answer. Dean looked around. The night was still. The motel's parking lot empty except for a few cars. But something about the silence felt wrong, unnatural. Hours later, while Dean finally lay down, exhaustion pulling him into uneasy rest, Sam sat awake in the dim glow of the lamp. He stared at his phone, thumb hovering over a contact he hadn't used in weeks. Ruby. He hesitated, the name alone carried weight. But curiosity, or maybe guilt, pushed him forward. He texted only 2 words, "It's done." No reply came. Just the quiet hum of the room and the faint sound of Dean snoring. Sam sighed, rubbing his face. His mind spun with everything: the demons, Dean's return, the growing darkness he felt building inside. He couldn't tell Dean. Not yet. Not about what he'd been doing, or what kind of power he'd been using. So, after a moment of hesitation, he grabbed his jacket and slipped out the door. The motel's night air was cool, the world dimly lit by a flickering streetlight. He got into the Impala, leaving the engine off, just pushing it down the road before starting it quietly, carefully. He drove into the dark. Sam returned to the small diner, the one from earlier. But this time, it wasn't filled with laughter or clinking glasses. The air was heavy, wrong. He stepped inside, and the smell hit him first: blood. Bodies lay scattered across the floor, the waitresses, the customers. All of them, dead. Everyone. Sam's heart pounded as he moved through the room, eyes scanning for movement. Then he heard it, a low, weak sound from behind the counter. A woman, one of the demons from earlier, lay slumped against the wall, bleeding from her mouth, eyes fading between black and human. Sam crouched next to her. What happened here? She looked at him, pain twisting her face. He came back. You don't understand, he came back. Who? Sam pressed. She coughed, blood trickling from her lips. The one who pulled him out. Her hand twitched, pointing weakly toward the ceiling. You can't fight him, Sam, he's not one of us. Her eyes rolled back, and she went still. Sam stood there for a long moment, his breath shallow. Something cold coiled in his chest, a fear even he didn't want to name. Back at the motel, Dean jolted awake. Something in the air shifted, a vibration, low and strange, like the sound of wings brushing against silence. He sat up, eyes scanning the room. Bobby was already on his feet, Latin book open, candles flickering. You feel that? Dean asked, voice tight. Bobby nodded. Yeah. It's here. They had been preparing the ritual for hours, the salt, the sigils, the Latin verses, trying to summon whatever being had raised Dean from hell. Dean swallowed hard. Let's do it. Bobby nodded and began the chant. The words rolled off his tongue in rhythm, the candle flames flickering violently as the temperature dropped. Dean's breath came out as mist. The shadows in the corners stretched, bending unnaturally, like the room itself was alive. Then silence. Everything stopped. The air froze. And suddenly, a blinding light burst through the room, pure and powerful, throwing Dean back a step. The walls shook, the windows cracked, and for a moment, it felt like the whole world was collapsing inward. When the light dimmed, Dean lifted his head slowly. Someone or something stood in the middle of the room. The figure was human-shaped, but not human. The air shimmered around him, energy pulsing like a heartbeat. His face was calm, unreadable. But behind him vast, radiant wings of light unfolded, stretching wide and majestic, their glow bending the shadows. Dean stared, mouth dry. You're the one who dragged me out, he said, voice rough. The being's gaze met his, piercing, endless, as if it could see straight through him. Yes, it said simply, voice deep and resonant, echoing like it came from both everywhere and nowhere. Why? Dean demanded. Why me? The figure tilted his head slightly, studying him with something between curiosity and purpose. Because you were chosen. Dean frowned. Chosen for what? The light flickered, softer now, almost compassionate. For what's coming. Bobby took a cautious step forward. And what is coming? The being didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the window, toward the horizon, where dawn was beginning to break. War, he said finally. A war that will shake heaven and hell. Dean's jaw tightened. And me? What am I supposed to do in your holy war? The being stepped closer, the light dimming just enough to reveal more of his face, human, but not ordinary. You will see, he said quietly. Dean glared. No, I want answers. Who are you? The figure paused, a faint flicker of something almost like sorrow in his eyes. Then he said, you already know. And with that, the light surged again, brighter than before. Dean shielded his eyes, but he saw it, the wings, vast and terrible, stretching across the entire room like fire and shadow intertwined. When the light faded, he was gone. Only the smell of ozone and the faint rustle of unseen feathers lingered in the air. Dean stood there for a long moment, trying to catch his breath. Well, he muttered finally, that's new. Bobby just stared, lips parted slightly. That wasn't no demon, he said softly. No, Dean agreed, eyes still fixed where the light had been. That was something worse. Outside, the first rays of morning crept across the sky, painting the motel in gold. Far off in the distance, Sam drove back, expression grim, the weight of what he'd seen pressing heavy on his shoulders. He didn't know what awaited him, only that everything had changed. And somewhere above, in the places between light and dark, unseen wings stirred again, silent, waiting. The game had only just begun.